What's up, Raptor fans? It's your host of the Wrap Up, Aiden Moss. I am joined by the one and the only brilliant writer and mustachier, Lou Zatzman. What's going on, Lou?
Hey man, I noticed you yourself are rocking a mustache tonight. Looks wonderful.
Yeah, I have to say, even though I'm pro prostate cancer awareness, November is like a bad month for me because I go mustache most times of the year. So they're like, "Yo, way to go, man! Like you're doing your mustache." And it's like, no, I'm doing this, 10 months of the year. So, but thank
I
you.
moved to the suburbs. I had a baby. I just woke up with a mustache one day. This was not a choice.
Yeah, you had a lawnmower on the side of the road suddenly.
Yeah, I was like,
Your,
whoa, why is this in my hands?
your grass is perfectly green for no reason.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that you're in the suburbs, but I'm glad you have a baby. So, great game today. If you like the number going up in the wins column, not so great game if you like basketball aesthetic. This was kind of a swampy game. There was a lot of up and down, which one can always love in a basketball game, right? The Bulls are up, the Raptors are up. It looked like we were losing control of this. Goran Dragic was like having a flamethrower game. And then we slowly kind of grinded it back and took over the game. So it was eventful, but it wasn't pretty. Lou, what kind of thoughts did you have watching this one?
Yeah, you know what this looked like? This was a 2021-22 Raptors game. They shot terribly from the floor. They shot awful from deep. They were sloppy. They didn't defensive rebound, but they took 15 more shots than their opponent, and they won the game. This was what it looked like last year.
Yeah, they dominated the offensive board late. The rebounding, especially defensive rebounding, was a problem early in the game. And then let's see, offensive rebounds, there's 15 for Chicago, and Toronto had 23. So yeah, 8 extra offensive rebounds. And when they counted too, it was like towards the end of the game, it was that, when there's a stagecoach and then suddenly there's these like 4 guys in black leather trench coats riding alongside on their horses. That's kind of what this was. It was like suddenly there's like these 4 Raptor Cowboys in the paint just kind of robbing the basketball from the Bulls. And that's what we needed, right? Like we needed to kind of go old school, so to speak, to grind this out. We weren't sure what kind of Freddie we were going to get. Scotty was struggling in isolation early. So was OG. Precious had a really tough one. Gary had a tough one. Like I was saying early to my brother that making up for Pascal's absence or the answer seemed to be like, oh, I'm going to do more isolation. And Pascal's one of the highest rates of ISO in the league. Like we're going to start doing that now. We're going to spread that out. And that just didn't work at all. And so you kind of saw the transition in the style of the game. It's like, okay, fine. That's not going to work. We're going to have to muck this up a little bit more.
Yeah. And it worked. I mean, it helps if the game is super sloppy and if skill isn't really the determining factor. How helpful is it to just have the biggest, strongest team? Like if it turns into a mud fight, sure helps to have OG Anunoby on your team.
Mm-hmm. Same with Boucher, and a small win for Thaddeus Young. I got outed here a couple of games ago on Thad being kind of a bust early. He even had a couple of good possessions early on too. He was one of the first guys kind of like keeping the ball alive, being at the right place at the right time. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, especially against the Bulls who have a spunky backcourt. They have a lot of smaller guys who kind of grind, but up front they're fairly soft. Like Patrick Williams is still not really kind of the OG emulation you want yet. And so they don't really have anybody that can handle our big, strong bodies. And goddamn does OG look big and strong, man. Like
Patrick Williams, really good player, might be Patrick Patterson.
Oh, no.
Like, I love the guy. I also love Patrick Patterson. But he's just not going to wrestle with Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby. I'm 100% on your side. Vucevic, great center, scored really well, was completely unable to force VanVleet to shoot in the pick and roll. Strength is not this team's strength.
No, not at all. And yeah, the Patrick Williams thing, like I wrote in my notes a couple of times, Scotty just like overwhelmed him with his strength on the offensive end, and that was quite surprising to me. I really thought early on Patrick Williams had a couple of good defensive possessions. I forget who he guarded straight up, and he just completely, it might have been OG, he just completely locked him down. But otherwise, Scotty was just like his density in all of his limbs and everything else. Like he just kind of just scooted past Patrick Williams. And that's surprising because I thought Patrick Williams is this like ultra power forward, you know? And so it speaks to Scotty's strength. It also helps, all of this helps when you have Dikembe Mutombo 2.0 anchoring this defense. Christian Koloko ended up with 6 blocks. By far his best game of the year. 11 points, 7 rebounds. And this isn't brand new observations. Like Koloko's a rookie. He has defensive lapses. He looks out of place at times. But the fact that he can clean up so much in and around the rim, and Alvin Williams noted that one block where he retreated from a double on DeMar, came all the way down from the 3-point line on the strong side to block the dunk on the weak side. Like that stuff we've just never had before, and it makes the tenacity of our defense all the more effective.
Yeah, Koloko was just awesome. He has weaknesses on the defensive end. When he has to guard a super athletic center, Time Lord, or someone with mad bounce, Jaren Jackson Jr., combined with a really athletic guard like a Ja Morant, and he needs to backpedal out of that pick and roll. He often doesn't choose his timing really well. He doesn't take great angles. His athleticism looks out of place in those moments. But when he's guarding just skill, and the game simplifies, and it's just contest at the rim, oh man, he can annihilate stuff. He was unbelievable around the rim. We also saw, I think Ryan mentioned a moment ago here in the chat, he was really good passing. He threw a great little pass from above the break to under the rim. It was the first option in the play. It was what he was supposed to be looking at. Yeah. It's not like he was creative or anything, but he hit OG for a dunk. He finished a lot out of the pick and roll and lobs. Really nice finish where he had to catch way behind him and then bring it up and finger roll into the rim. His finishing, to me, really determines his ceiling. His pick and roll defense is the floor, right? Because we know what he can give. If he can also plug up that pick and roll, defend 2 guys for an instant until he gets the help, then he's going to be, great floor player. The finishing, if he can just catch around the rim, if he can dunk over guys, if he can be strong, then he is going to be unbelievable. And this was the best game of his career. Just so impressive.
Yeah, I do think the finishing will come. There were a couple of gimmies he just missed, which he was not alone in that. We missed a lot of easy ones in this game. But it's not like we're watching, I don't want to have to, well, even Precious last year to some degree, right? Like he's going up with some measure of control. There were a couple that were just like, oh God. But I don't have that feeling all the time. It's not like I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, did you have to give it to him? There's some level of confidence that he's going to finish either with like a good dunk, or at least he has like a soft little touch. So I think that is going to develop over time, especially like from where he was in Summer League to now. There's already been a significant jump. So I'm confident that that's going to, he's going to continue to progress.
He does have a soft touch. He just relies on it too much. You're 7'1", dunk through people.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. Who else do you want to talk about? Freddie?
Fred? Yeah. Oh, Fred, man.
Okay. I'm mad at Freddie because I didn't think he was really going to play this amount, and all my prop bets did not include Freddie other than his assists over. I did not foresee him having 30. Also, no steals, thanks, Freddie. But I did not foresee him having one of these hero Freddie games. Although, like if he had been healthy, this is a no-brainer Freddie moment. And this is So I am such a proponent of Freddie off ball, and I'm such a proponent of reduced Freddie usage. But these are the moments why you pay somebody like Freddie the money you do, is that like when you need him when things aren't going well, or when you need him when the game is on the line, more often than not, he is stepping up and he is taking control. I think he tries to do it too much in the wrong moments, and this year that's been reduced, and it's nice to see. But it's also really nice to see that when we lose a superstar like Pascal, we have a guy like Freddie who can step into his place.
You mad at him? You had me. I was aghast.
Well, it cost me money, goddammit. You're like, you're gonna be a little mad.
This is gambling can't take over the media space to that extent. No, man, Freddie was what I really loved about him is you're not the only one who wants him off ball, right? It's a pretty common refrain. You even hear Nick talking about it, and Freddie himself talking about, his playoff ball. But what he did that was so impressive to me is he started the game letting Scotty run the offense. He said, "Look, you've been the point guard for a couple nights. You've been really impressive as the point guard. Let's see what you can do." And by and large, it was nothing. They had no paint touches on the first 7 or 8 possessions. Scotty spent 12 dribbles just for a turnaround from the mid-ranger, which he missed. He really was not creating for everyone. And Fred said, "All right, I can go get the ball. I can see what I can do." And he ran pick and rolls. I mean, that pass is a really good example. And when Fred succeeded on ball, that's when he was able to get much more deadly off ball, right? The game, nothing is ever static. And creating, planting your flag in the soil in one place allows you to plant it elsewhere. And I thought the same thing was true for Scotty. When he got himself succeeding off ball, in the post, he got Caruso a couple times. That's when he was catching and going and getting that north-south contact to really create those push shots. That's when he was able to succeed on ball. And he had one of my favorite plays of his entire career this game.
Who, Scotty?
Yeah, which only happened because he was intermittently on ball. It was the end of the first half. He had the ball. Someone was setting the screen for him. He waved him away and called up Boucher, right? Pick and popper. So he drove left, and he jumped to pass to Boucher. And then he had 2 guys jump the passing lane, pass fake, knowing that they were going to jump Boucher, which is why he called him up, and then skip the pass, threw to Fred on the weak side for 3 to end the half. That was such brilliant basketball knowledge, because that play was created as he called up Boucher for the pick and roll. But that doesn't work if you're running 30 pick and rolls a game, right? That doesn't work if Fred is just a shooting guard and Scotty is the point guard. It works as they trade, as they work with each other, as they find each other, as they did on that play, as they did when Fred was on ball and Scotty was cutting. To end the game, Fred had the same thing, right? The jump pass fake, Scotty in the middle for the dunk. Their collective point guard duties was where Toronto really succeeded in the half court. I really went on a rant there, but I agree with you a little. But by and large, they were awesome together, and neither of them controlled the ball too much.
Yeah, that Scotty pass, to me, it looked like a microsecond, what's it called? Decision, essentially, right? He read it as it was happening before it was happening, and found the right pass. That's the kind of stuff where you see why Scotty should be the playmaker and the point guard, to your point, sometimes. That's the thing. It's not that Freddie must be off ball. It's more that Freddie must be more interchangeable. And there was a lot of the time last year, especially where he'd come give me the ball. And Scotty did it a couple of times this game too. I think one time OG's what the hell, dude? Just let me take the ball up. Are you coming towards me? So
yeah.
And I think that's what's kind of interesting with all of this. You saw that in this game is there's this push and pull that Nurse is allowing these guys to kind of flourish in the roles that they've been designated, but then also it not working at all, and then having to kind of like rejig that on the fly. And I think we saw that a lot in the first and second quarter. Again, there was a lot of isolation. There was a lot of letting guys do what they wanted to do. And then you started to see, I mentioned to my brother, I'm like, I would like to see a little bit more motion. And then I'm pretty sure they ran that play for Freddie where Koloko hit him, and it's like little things like that where I feel like this team, and then also in the second half, they started to, I just feel like this team doesn't accentuate our strengths all the time. Like second half, post all the time. Scotty in the post, bang, hit someone for a three. OG was in the post, bang, hit someone for a three. Like those are the advantages that I want to like kind of exploit. And I feel like sometimes we focus too much on getting Scotty the ball because he's the playmaker, as opposed to just leveraging the advantages we have. I also just went on a rant, but you know what I mean?
No, 100. I could not agree more. A lot of that is on coaching. Samson said this in a podcast with me last year. I loved it so much. Last year, they were like, Pascal Siakam, you need to carry the team. And Pascal's like, well, what can you give me? They were like, the ball. Nothing more, right? We won't run you sets. You can have the ball, and that's all. And very often, and Pascal can be great like that. Very often, no one else can, right? As good as Scotty is, if you just run him 20 isolations a game, he's not going to be wonderful. No. And I thought the difference from the first quarter to every other quarter in that game was the coaching got way more creative, right? Fred went from running high pick and rolls with Koloko to running wide pin downs off of stagger screens, catch and fire as you chop those steps running into the catch. They had inverted horns with Fred at the elbow setting a back screen. They had some Spain pick and roll with Scotty handling and Gary setting that back screen. Like they went from everyone isolates to I'm going to get deep in my playbook and pull out some tricks. Like the coaching tonight, I was very impressed by. And I actually maybe too much. Like this isn't the playoffs. Like cool it, man. We don't need all this stuff in a regular season game. Sunday, 6 p.m. Come on now.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think the vacuum that Pascal leaves kind of forces the issue on that. And I don't think it necessarily, it was some of the play calling, but it also just felt much more purposeful than it has in the past. I think what Pascal's become means that things are just going to, the read and react kind of stuff is going to naturally evolve out of that. He's just such a, gravitational force. But without him and with Scotty or Gary not really cooking, they did make a point of being more purposeful with how they were going to exploit certain matchups. And that was refreshing because I feel like that is something that has been an ongoing frustration for me with this coaching staff, is that they choose not to be as calculated, or they don't go away from their game plan offensively as much as I would like.
Yeah, I agree. OG.
Let's do it.
Yo. Oh my God, Anunoby is phenomenal. The defense was crazy. The offense, that putback. What did you see?
Well, I was just going to read his stat line. So he was second first on plus minus was Freddie. Second was Thaddeus Young. But right beside there was OG, who's plus 24, 22 points, 6 boards, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block, which is low for him at this point. Yeah. 2 for 5 for 3. He had a couple of gimmies again that should have dropped. I am absolutely in love with OG. I've been waiting for it, and it's kind of here. He's finally grown into his body. He's using his strength and explosiveness in an intelligent and sharp way. He's, when he gambled a couple of times tonight and it didn't pay off, whatever, this defensive scheme was something else, having DeMar doubled all the time. But in the last 3 or 4 games, you are seeing all of those physical tools come together. And he's a great intellectual defender at the same time. And it is absolutely wonderful to watch.
Yeah, that post up. Okay, this play I actually wanted to bring up. What a metaphorical play to describe the shift from the Raptors' last era to this era. It was so perfect, right? DeMar DeRozan guarding OG Anunoby in the post. Skill to brawn, right? OG just bulldozes him and then hits the little push shot. That was, to me, that play was an era definer in some ways. And one thing that really stood out to me, we talked a lot about, Fred and Scotty interchanging the point guard roles. You know who didn't get to run point guard really at all? Was OG. We thought, or at least I thought, we didn't really talk about it, you and I, but I thought that he would have a lot more ability to create with Pascal injured. Maybe he will in upcoming games. But I saw like one or two pick and rolls he ran. He missed one from the mid-range, got his own rebound for the dunk. But by and large, he was just filling in his second side driver, hit his jumpers, ran in transition. He had the same role that he has had for a long time. But he is, and this is a cliche, but he is absolutely the be the star in your role type of guy. Mm-hmm. He was dominant with no plays run for him.
Yeah, this is one of his lesser aggressive games. I think I didn't get to talk about the Dallas game, but what I noted in that game and the previous one with the Spurs is that his aggression rate is way higher. He is grabbing the ball and he is going and last year, and he's making the best of his opportunity, which is kind of to your point of I am going, when I get the ball, I am not going to F around here. I am just going to be much more pointed with what I'm doing. And I think that's his best. There's a play I'm going to write about with the Dallas game where he caught and ripped on the move. And those are the kinds of plays that OG is best at. The same with some of the plays tonight where he's kind of he's been much more decisive, much more direct on what he's doing, and a little bit more balanced than he has been. He's still struggling a little bit, but he's definitely making strides. And I think a lot of things have to go right for this team to be where they want it to be. But OG truly is the linchpin of this team. I think if he hits his ceiling as of this season, I don't even know. What do you think his season could be, or his ceiling could be?
Oh, his ceiling is almost incomparable, right? If everything clicks, because he's an elite finisher and he's an elite shooter.
Kind of. Are we sure he's an elite finisher?
Statistically, he is the most efficient play finisher on the Raptors. Right, a play that ends up with Anunoby shooting statistically is the best option you can have for the Raptors, wherever he's going to shoot it from. And so, with that as a foundation and the defense, when you start thinking ceiling, it's if he can create for himself. And the thing that's crazy about that is he hits the paint every time. He had a really nice drive where he hit the paint and threw that little dump off pass to Koloko for a dunk. He's been doing that a lot this season. If he is able to drive and transition into his own shot, right? He doesn't get thin really ever. He just strides through guys. He's not able to have that energy transfer from dribble into a gather sideways. Mm-hmm. He there's some things missing. But he hits the paint, which is the hardest part. That's what no one can do when they drive, right? That's the most important thing. And so all you need to do is just turn those paint touches into natural shots. That shouldn't be hard. And if that's what we're talking about, the ceiling is a star, a top 20, 30 guy in the league. It's crazy. Jaylen Brown, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
It is really, really wild to think about. And championship teams always have overqualified players in that, 14, 15 shot a game role. Second side drivers, spot up shooters, pin down runners, norm for the championship Raptors. OG looks like he can be that guy today without any improvement.
Yeah, well, the thing is there's 3 or 4 guys that look like they could be that guy by the end of the year, which is why I'm high on the upside of this team. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But I had a thought about OG. Shit, it's gone. But yeah, I just think that he's still like he's 25. I can't imagine what he's going to be in 3 years. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So one of the things, you're right, like he's getting into the paint, which I love, and again, like much more efficiently than he was last year even.
Yeah.
But like you said, he's losing his explosiveness, or he's not able to leverage his explosiveness when he gets there. And a lot of that has to do with his balance, or like you were saying, transitioning from the dribble into a shot. It's coming, and the more like there are signs that it is evolving, and that's all you can really hold on to. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, that explosion, you saw it on that putback dunk, in the end of the game, when he is able to have that clean energy transfer, just stride 1-2 jump. Man, he is one of the most athletic guys in the NBA, and that's crazy. That's saying something. He is so strong when he can get that jump off.
Well, and if he can, it's kind of like a Zion. Like if he can get the shoulder in a legal way, because for whatever reason, referees seem to be hunting us with our physicality.
Yeah.
But if he can get that initial bump and then gathering up, like there are a few guys that have that, both that strength, stature, and like verticality that OG has.
Yeah.
Whoo boy, love OG. Okay, who else we got? Anybody else you want to touch on? Disappointments?
I mean,
do we not want to avoid negativity?
I thought Gary didn't play a great game, but his game was much more just like missing shots than actually making poor choices. And I have nothing wrong. Guys miss shots. That's totally fine. You can play a great game and have poor numbers at the end. You just, don't always hit jumpers, and that's normal. Precious really isn't right now what we all expected on offense, but I was really impressed with his defense. And one thing, Trace 124 actually, I want to talk about Otto. He's been awesome, quiet since he came into the rotation, but I've been really impressed with his ability to fit in and look like he's been here for years.
Yeah, I was surprised at his fitness. He looks bouncy a little. Well, for whatever Otto Porter, he doesn't look slow. He's doing exactly what he was signed to do. He's hitting his shots. He's a great swing passer. Like there's zero hesitation on his passing. He's making the right rotations on defense. He's getting his hands in there. He's getting a couple of rebounds. Like it's nice to have a guy that. It's kind of like what I thought Utah could be. It's like a guy that you know when you put them out there, you know what you're going to get. It's safe. It's okay. Like, yeah, the whole team could sync with that kind of player on the floor. But if you're just looking for some kind of stability, he's going to give that to you. And the same can't really be said for like Precious, who's our 7th guy right now. And I think another reason why Thad was out there too is just like another guy that kind of gives a little bit of stability and consistency.
Yeah, that's a good point from Ryan. The scramble defense, like there were a couple shooters that were Ayo Dosunmu had a couple open shots that I thought Porter was like a moment slow. But part of that is also the Raptors do let some guys shoot. And so part of it is maybe he's not up to perfect speed on the scramble. And some of it's just, you let a couple guys shoot from three. But on Porter, how often is the shooter that you sign going to have an 0 for 1 game from deep? No real frequency or efficiency. It didn't hit one. And yet was a really solid rotation player that they asked to close the game. That means that he is a good player, not just a good shooter.
Yeah. Fine rebounder. Like like I said, he enables you to, you can just rely on him essentially, right? Without it being like, it's not like, the thing is you could put Precious out there, who's a much better defender and a much better rebounder, but the vulnerability of that is what the hell is he going to do on the offensive end? That's a monster of our own creation that we want Precious to be adventurous and aggressive, but sometimes it gets us in a lot of trouble like tonight. And so with Otto, all of the right decisions are going to be made. That's refreshing. We've not really had guys like that. And I will also say with the Gary benching, so to speak. Like he didn't play the latter part of the fourth or much of the fourth quarter, if at all, I want to say.
Yep.
Let's just see. Gary played a minute 46, so he didn't play much of the fourth quarter, which is atypical. He's usually been our secondary scorer the last couple of games. Also refreshing to see the coaching staff not stand pat with what they like always do. And I feel like even though Nick Nurse is known for being versatile and experimental, I find he's kind of stubborn with rotations. And he always kind of like sticks. There's a couple of guys who may or may not play, but the core is always the core. And sitting Gary, because he wasn't what they needed at the time, was like kudos to Nick Nurse, because you don't see that often from him.
Yeah, it was win the game coaching. And we've seen a couple games already this season where the Raptors have coached to prioritize development, to prioritize the future. We've seen Scotty getting force-fed reps. We've seen a lot of that. And I think tonight we are winning the game first and foremost coaching decision.
Yeah, it's nice to see. Thad Young, someone asked, was this his best game of the season? Well, that kind of goes without saying, I think. He played the most minutes. And he was at the right place at the right time, kind of a game for him, which is nice. A couple of flippers in the hoop. That was encouraging. Lou, what do you think? What did this come down to? Like, why were we able to pull this game out? Was it just because Chicago kind of went cold from three?
No, I mean, I think, that was part of it, but they didn't have their best three-point shooters shooting. I think the game got really sloppy. They had like 4 transition plays in a row where everyone was missing. And when the game gets sloppy, often it's just the bigger, stronger, more athletic team that wins. That's high school ball, right? Mm-hmm. It's exactly what you said when you opened the show. You said this: if you like aesthetic, pretty basketball, this wasn't the game for you. And it's true for all of our positives that we're discussing. This was not like a Golden State Warriors championship game where you just outshot them, you outplayed them, you locked them up, and you just, had it stamped halfway through the third and then went home. It was not that game. They won grimy, they won dirty, and a lot of guys sort of reverted to sort of, bad habits in some ways. But that doesn't matter because they are bigger, they are stronger, and they were able to pull it out regardless.
Crazy stat. So the Bulls are 1 for 7 from 3 in the fourth quarter. We were 3 for 11. Okay, whatever. The Bulls had 10 total rebounds, one of which was an offensive rebound. We had 11 offensive rebounds in the fourth quarter and 19 total. So, like to your point, we switched the game to a rugby scrum and we quickly won. And what I love about this team more so than last year is the versatility. Like last year, we kind of had to rely on the scrum, period. This year, I feel like there are a couple of ways we can win games. We saw, like against Atlanta and the Spurs, and even Dallas, for that matter, a different style of winning games or trying to win games. And this, like you said, this was 2021 Raptors. The fourth quarter was old school that way.
And that's, I think, maybe the most indicative point about Fred VanVleet, because we saw when he was hurt and the Raptors were successful in those first 2 games, I saw a ton of fans calling for, this shows that he doesn't fit in with the future of this team, because the future or the vision is 6'9" across the board, the defense. But this game, the Raptors went rugby style in the fourth quarter, and they lost the start of the fourth quarter. They were bulldozed for the first 2 minutes. The Bulls pulled the game really close. And then Fred came in, 10 minutes left in the game, played the rest of the game. He sat for 2 minutes to start the fourth, nothing. And they immediately closed the door on the game. That style doesn't work unless you have a guy like Fred VanVleet. You can have all the 6'9" guys you want, right? 5 James Johnsons do not win basketball games. They need a Fred VanVleet to run things, and he ran the show tonight.
Yeah, we can't have 5 jiu-jitsu players on the court at once.
Exactly.
It's kind of weird because I'm looking at Freddie's stats. He's 3 for 10 in the quarter, 2 big threes, timely threes, and 3 assists. But like to your point, there was just a sense of Freddie just kind of taking over this game, and ultimately you need those kinds of players if you're going to win, and you need them at all positions essentially. You know, like if we're going to be serious about winning games, anybody who's suggesting that we trade Fred VanVleet, unless you're upgrading him to like I don't know Kevin Durant, like
Shea.
Yeah, or Shea. Well, yeah, but what's okay? Yeah, okay, that's a different topic. But I'm just saying that like we're not getting like just because we have one game where the 6'8" like lineup works is foolish to say that like suddenly we can move on from a guy like Freddie.
Exactly.
We're gonna transition to tweet of the night. Producer Kaon's gonna throw it out for us. What you got for us? So for podcasters, we have. This is some random dude posting this, right? Goran Dragic is 0 for 2. Okay, this is a stat. So we got there's 2 images, Goran Dragic in his Bulls jersey and Goran Dragic in his Nets jersey, both of which he's shushing the crowd. He is now officially 0 for 2 when he shushes the Toronto crowd for booing him. So that's a great tweet. Tweet of the night here at the wrap-up. That's great. Goran is such a dingus, man. I love it. Like, we were booing him, whatever. Take it or leave it. But the whistle was blown, and then Goran, like, heaved a shot and missed, and everybody cheered that he missed the meaningless shot after the whistle. Like, I love that pettiness so much.
Raptors need a better villain. Man, Vince Carter was a villain. He deserved the boos. Goran Dragic is a nobody. How do fans even know who he is? Like, the Raptors need a Paul Pierce again, someone who's proper for them to hate.
I do, and listeners, throw in the chat if you have any nominees. I do think I still feel like ire towards Goran for thinking like we're a crud team and then moving to Brooklyn and going nowhere. Like I feel insulted by that. But you're right, he's washed now. I think honestly, our best guy, I don't know if anybody else has someone better, is Embiid. Like Embiid, I like Embiid. I like him maybe. But when he plays Toronto, I absolutely hate him. Like he's so annoying and whiny and so for me it's Embiid, and that's a fun rivalry to build. Cameroonian, same age, same conference, same division, like that's a good one.
And he seems to hate the Toronto crowd. The Toronto crowd definitely hates him. And he's a star. There've been multiple playoff matchups. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I'm holding on to that one.
Yeah.
Lou, I'll give you the honors of naming the Can-Am Taxman of the night. CanAmTax.com. Listeners, you can go check it out. They do personal taxes, business taxes. They're friends with Raptors Republic. Give them your support. We like to support small businesses, especially the ones that fork over money to our lovely site. So go check out CanAmTax.com. Lou, this year, CanAmTax.com is directly correlative of who was the best player on the floor in a subjective sense. You don't necessarily have to go with like stats best player, but you can.
To me, it was Christian Koloko.
Oh,
it was the first game of his career where he was absolutely dominant. He swallowed up the rim. He had guys actually turning around when they got to the paint and saw him. He was a proper rim protector in the sense that he does more deferral than he does protection. He was phenomenal, and it was by far the best game of his career, his best offensive game as well. I was stunned with his performance. Gotta be Koloko.
I'm 1,000% in agreement. There's not going to be many opportunities for him to claim this award, so we got to give it to him when we can. The doubling Doncic, I thought maybe would have suggested we dial it back a little bit, but I guess DeMar is less of a passer, and it's like, no, we actually amped it up twofold and doubled DeMar in like the most absurd spots on the floor. And that was really only somewhat successful because Koloko was in the background at first blocking people, but then his presence alone was really kind of, You actually saw it. There was a point where Thad Young was kind of the quasi five, and guys were just going straight to the rim, no problem. And then Koloko came right in, and they had to U-turn. They had to go somewhere else. So he really was the reason why we held the Bulls to a grand total of 104 points, which is a great defensive effort. So well done, Christian Koloko.
Yep.
Is that our first rookie to win the award? Maybe. Might be. No, Scotty won one last year. What am I talking about? Okay. Okay, we're going to do questions, and then we're going to get the hell out of here. So if anybody has some questions, I've starred 3, all of them from Phoenix, because he always asks so many questions. I love that, and there's no bad question. Phoenix asks, Lewis, I don't know if you saw the play, but Fred split a pick and roll entirely. He called Koloko early for the screen, and he ran by 2 guys like he's Mitchell. He missed, but that's something I noticed. That's not a question. Sorry. Next question. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's Koloko, right? Like, that's not really about Fred, because Fred is as capable of splitting a pick and roll as anybody. But because he hasn't had a roll threat for so long, and he hasn't been wonderful at passing to the roller, they just close that gap and ask him to spit out to the sides. And so that point is as much about Koloko as anyone. Okay, next question.
Okay. Phoenix numero dos. Also for Lou. I guess Phoenix doesn't respect my opinion, whatever. Lou, well, you are a special guest, so we have to take advantage of this while we can. Do you think Fred can be the, not first, but second best player on a championship team?
Yeah, so I think the tier of player caliber on championship teams is quite variable. Depending on how the rest of the team is built, the style they play, and there's also better and worse championship teams. I think last year's team, Fred is already as good as whomever you might say was the second best player on the Golden State Warriors. By and large, though, I think the most important thing for Fred at this point is how he impacts the game on the drive. Tonight, he was phenomenal at controlling the court, spraying to the corners, throwing the lobs, going for the finish a couple times, but those few finishes really opened up the rest of the game. When he plays on the drive like he did tonight, he is absolutely ready to be the second best player on a championship team. If all the other features are locked in and ready, if everything else is complementary. I think the driving hasn't always been there, so it's up and down. Tonight shows really that peak of how phenomenal he can be, though, at controlling the entire court.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to give an answer because Phoenix didn't ask me, but I do think he can be if the 3rd, 4th, and 5th guys are like very narrowly in contention, and I think that's what this team is going to be at its ultimate, which is Freddie will be the second best player on the team because he's our best point of attack defender. Maybe OG is, but he's up there. He's one of our best defenders. He's our best shooter. And so I think, ultimately he, like you said, when he is at his best, affecting defenses at all 3 levels, like he is our second best player. But I think Scotty and OG are going to be right narrowly there. Yep. A follow-up to the second question. Better question is, do you think Pascal can make a Paul George Butler level leap into a number 1 on a contender?
I mean, Pascal is already better than Paul George and Jimmy Butler, is he not?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. It's a little too early for me to actually say that he's better than both of those players. Like Jimmy, especially Jimmy, has like 10 years under his belt now, or like 5 or 6 of being like a top player. Pascal's like, here and there.
7 games.
Yeah, and then in the odd couple of games, and then chunks of the other last couple seasons. But I wouldn't say he's better than them yet. I want to see in the playoffs Pascal do what he's doing right now. I guess that's what it is, because I know Paul George and Jimmy can do those things in like high intensity environments.
I love to hear you say that, because I'm a huge fan of of course Butler, but Paul George. I hate the playoff P narrative. He is so freaking good. But to me, Pascal Siakam right now, because the question is not really about those two players. It's about the general tier of those players. And I think Pascal Siakam is absolutely at that level. He is able to control every possession. He's able to create advantages just by being on the court. And that's what the best player is, right? It's someone who isn't just efficient, in Pascal's efficiency. It's someone who isn't just able to score from wherever he is on the court, who can't just bail out possessions. It's someone who creates or converts advantages no matter what. You can give Pascal the ball with 6 seconds on the shot clock, 2 guys guarding him, and he's outside the arc, no paint touch. And you can still guess, they're probably going to get a pretty good look out of this, right? That's that tier of player. And Pascal is he has reached that tier of stardom where it's replicable night in and night out. He just knows, if I take 2 dribbles left, I know what the defense is going to do. If I spin, I know what the weak side defense is going to do, right? If I cut, I know what the strong side defense is going to do behind me. He is aware of the impact of every motion because the skills have been there. We have seen the skills, right? It's that knowledge of replicability, sustainability. And that's what makes Paul George, Jimmy Butler especially. Jimmy Butler does not change. Night in, night out, he is exactly the same. The man is math defeating you on the court. And Pascal has reached that level.
I agree with you. I think he has reached that level. And I'm just saying, long-term remains to be seen in other environments. But him and Jimmy are similar in that sense that it's their footwork, it's their drawing players in and then countering again and just making fools out of people. And it is the first time in the playoffs last year to some degree, and then especially this year, where I'm okay, baby, cook. It's not I'm not this time again, Pascal. It's every possession I'm let's go. What's going to happen? And so much of that has to do with his mid range being so tight, but then also his finish in and around the rim, high level, and then also his passing. He is finding guys and in ways that he never has before, and seeing the floor in ways he never has before. And then on top of that, which we talked about in the offseason, is his killer instinct. And that's another thing that suggests that he's in this upper echelon of superstar. He is going to go over and over and over and over again until you figure him out, which no one has really yet. It's really only his shooting that has prevented him from having 25-plus point games.
You want guys who are dicks. You want people, the best players don't just want to beat their opponents, they want to humiliate them. And a really indicative moment of superstars is what happens when they get the ball with 2 minutes left in the game, or let's say, 45 seconds left in the game, and they're up 9. Scotty is going to go dunk. Pascal is going to go dunk, and then they're going to laugh in your face. And for so long, the Raptors got dunked on and got laughed at when they were down 9 with 45 seconds left in the game. And now the Raptors are surrounded by stars, populated by stars, who are just dicks to opponents. Scotty's signature move at this point in his career is the look back dunk in transition. Yeah. How cocky, how arrogant. And Pascal is cut from that same cloth. Because you talk about the killer instinct, it's not just wanting to win. It's wanting to be an absolute, can I swear?
Yeah, please.
It's wanting to be an absolute motherfucker about it.
Zarar's gonna get mad at you, but I think by now the people listening that don't like swears have just petered off anyway. 100%. And you wouldn't see it, right? He kind of it doesn't come across that way necessarily the same way Scotty does. Scotty's much more verbose and expressive and all those things. But yeah, Pascal's got it in him, and I love to see it. There's also maybe last point, but my brother and I were saying that there's an athleticism to this team, I'm going to save that point for another time. I haven't fully fleshed it out yet. Okay. Any last points you want to bring up, Lou?
No, this was fun. I think we got basically everything I wanted to out of this. We didn't mention we've talked all this about Pascal. Really nice to win a game, the first game without Pascal, huh?
True that. True that. I also will highlight, and we talked about the listeners were talking about this, but the rotations were kind of interesting. There was no Flynn or Banton today for the first time basically all year. And I wrote about it on Friday how I'm annoyed at how he has been playing their minutes, and frankly, I'd rather they both just sit if it's not going to be consistent. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree with you. I love your 5 things, man. You're such a good writer. But I completely agree with your point. It's not an advantageous way to use your players, and so if you're not going to empower them, I'd rather you play someone else who is able to be empowered. And Thad Young really took those minutes. Koloko took those minutes, and they were successful in them in a way that Banton and Malachi haven't been. So I like the rotations tonight.
Do you think moving forward, like we're gonna get more DNPs from them?
Probably, yeah.
And or Downton coming up after a couple of good 905 games, or do you think we moved on from guards? Do you think that's what it is? That's what I kind of wonder when I was writing. I'm like, maybe this is just the slow ending, like death of backup guards for the Toronto Raptors.
Well, I mean, you give them Monty Morris or something, and they're going to be playing some backup guards. So I think, depending on how the team changes, yes. For right now, this is probably the slow death of the backup guards. Actually, I think Tomo said this perfectly right here. The team looks best when they play their best players. Simple. And right now, Thad Young, Christian Koloko, Otto Porter, these guys have been better than Banton and Malachi. Full stop. That's really all it is.
It's too bad because I really just feel like Flynn's like so close to being there, but it just might not ever happen.
I think he's an NBA player, just on the wrong team.
Yeah, I think that seems to be common consensus from the Raptors management. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. You're right. It's nice to have a first W with Pascal Siakam gone. They're going to Chicago tomorrow. I thought we were getting rid of like these flying back and forths across the country for no real reason, but apparently not.
Yeah, the head-to-head, why make them in different cities? Who the hell knows?
Yeah, climate change people, come on. Lou, it's always an honor. Thank you for joining us. Otherwise, it would have to have been myself monologuing for an hour, and no one wants that. So I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, man.
Okay.
Thank you all so much, and thank you, dude. I love talking to you.
Yes, sir. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Maybe. All right. Peace out, everybody.